Let's be clear, England are the underdogs, and we will preview this final with that kind of mindset, that England are the underdogs. Although there are certain things that England might do in possession that can be really troubling for Spain, but I think England will have to do a lot of things and adapt to Spain so much, because what Spain do is less predictable than what England do, and what Spain do will need a lot more work from England than the other way around, if that makes sense. It will need some elite discipline, absolute maximum discipline from from England defensively, and legs and running and intensity and giving it everything. And there have been visibly tired legs in this England team, namely Kane and Bellingham, who will do a lot of work here. And we'll show you how now. We'll actually jump right in now. With the predicted 11s, which I think pick themselves. I don't think Southgate starts Shaw now, having started Trippier every single game. Gray obviously starts. That's the Konsa appearance was because Gray was suspended, and that's about it. I think Kobe Mino starts because he's been kind of the most relied upon central midfielder consistently since the Trent experiment kind of fell by the wayside, and Gallagher came in for a game and didn't really do anything. So Mainu came in, and there has been a good set of performances from Mainu in terms of progressing the play from defense to attack, just through ball carrying. He's been very reliable in possession, completing a lot of passes, but passes that are kind of simple. I think only 13% of his passes prior to the semifinal, I read something like that 13% of his passes were forward, but at least keeps the ball, These kinds of statistics in tournament football don't mean as much as they do in the regular club football over a season, where you will almost always play teams that are better than you and teams that are less than you, that sort of thing. But the 11 for Spain, I've put it here as Fabian and Rodri because their system relies on the freedom it gives to Olmo and freeing up Yamal and Nico Williams here. So I watched the France game, and I watched the Germany game back. I wasn't able to watch that live at the time. And on the one hand, France had not a clue what to do with Dani Olmo, and with Nico Williams and Cucurella exchanging positions, and finding Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal on one side all of a sudden, and those absolute positional overloads on this side, and just passes were getting absolutely sliced down the middle. From Nacho all the way to Morata, from Laporte to Dani Olmo, or they were so easily just able to slice through the heart of the France midfield with one pass, because they moved a couple players around and whoop, just slide the ball into one of the forwards. Lamine Yamal tucks in and receives the ball from the heart of defense, and then it turns and it's a chance. That, first of all, cannot under any circumstances happen. And that's what I mean when I say it will take elite discipline to close the passing channels down. But also, it's going to be crucial to play kind of man-on-man, really. Man-to-man. Man-to-man marking. Almost. I think Germany provided a good blueprint for this. If you watch the Germany game back, which I just did this morning, they forced the ball back to Unai Simon a lot of times by marking Fabian and Rodri out of the game in that moment. So when they're building out of the back, an England attacking midfielder on each of those Spain quote-unquote DMs, just to make sure that they aren't passing options, that if they pass, it will be susceptible to an interception. We're trying to force the ball back to Unai Simon, who will just clear the ball out. And oftentimes Germany won back possession from that. Kane has posted up some pretty high numbers in terms of pressing the opposition on the ball, and he'll need to continue to do that with maximum energy. Just keep pressing players. Don't make it comfortable for the center backs to have the ball. They got to be careful, though, because if they commit too much, then all of a sudden a space can free up in the middle, and then Dani Olmo might, move in field. Maybe, Kobe Mino might mark him, and then you have Alvaro Morata, come down and free himself up, or Nico Williams even drifting into midfield into an open space. So while England can try to mark specific players out of the game, they have to be careful how much they actually commit. So if the ball goes back to Unai Simon, that's okay. You can even have Simon have the ball. You don't have to press Unai Simon himself. But make sure you're marking players so that, Stones on Morata. And I think actually the back three is a pretty good. They can face off pretty well with the Spanish front three. I'll talk about that in a second. But maybe if Kane is, closing down or like is situated somewhere here and trying to close down channels, or if Simon has the ball, you can have Bellingham lurking and trying to, be set for a pressing trigger when Simon passes the ball to Nacho. Bellingham can attack, can jump, or at least make his body position seem like he's going to jump. So that way you kind of force Simon into probably passing to Carvajal, which is fine, probably passing who hasn't had a decent tournament. But for Spain, those flanks are probably the two weakest players on the ball. I say weakest, but it's a pretty high bar in Spain. But then you also have the possibility of, if the ball reaches Cucurella, have the possibility of Bukayo Saka pressing him. And if the ball reaches Carvajal, you have the probability of Trippier pressing him. And again, how much you actually commit players forward is going to be crucial. I think England have to also focus on being kind of vertically and horizontally compact so that these spaces don't actually open up. You have to make it as uncomfortable as possible for Spain. Spain can really play in tight spaces. And actually, in the semi-final against France, I think there was a moment from Rod who had like three players converging on him, and somehow he touched the ball and wriggled it out to, I think it might have been Fabian. But I can't pinpoint the moment that happened. I don't have the clip for it. But there was a moment where he literally had zero space, surrounded by three players, and he still managed to wriggle the ball out. So England, at the end of the day, can only do so much, right, against the likes of Rod, best player in the world, by the way, at this moment in time. Yeah, I think many would agree. Okay, that's phase one. Another situation England need to be care of is what we spoke about at the beginning with France. It's the fact that if Spain have the ball long enough and put enough passes together, they can end up in a situation where they have 4 or 5 players on one side, completely overwhelming England. This is particularly a problem on the right-hand side of England, and I'll tell you why. We'll pretend the ball is, let's say, with Cucurella. Cucurella and Nico Williams will kind of interchange positions. Williams can be the one in the half space, then Cucurella will be on the touchline, and vice versa. So Williams there, Cucurella there. And then you have Morata dropping in to support the build-up. Nice and easy passes from Morata. You'll get the ball from Cucurella, maybe get it back, move Mainu about a little bit. Dani Olmo has the ability to drift about, go into the right areas, maybe make a move in behind into the half space, which is a space he particularly likes. Even Lamine Yamal can join Nico Williams. It's not uncommon for Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams to be on the same wing. And that's terrifying. But let's say England have maximum numbers here to be able to withstand these overloads. Stones might be tempted to drop in and defend against, Markov or Morata, maybe. And then you're suddenly in a situation where if Cucurella sends the ball wide to Lamine Yamal, he's one-on-one with Gray. So that's, again, it tacks into that kind of how much careful can England really be? So they're stuck in a conundrum. If Spain have the ball long enough, you can undercommit and get overwhelmed on one side, or you can overcommit and have a 1v1 situation with Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams. You really, really don't want that. So it's going to be a problem. So England can do with trying to force Fabian and Rodri towards their own back line and trying to force the ball back to either Unai Simon or to the flanks, and limit ball progression down the middle, and have to be super, super careful about how much they actually commit to pressing players and how much they can commit to, kind of getting baited by Spain's overloads and being careful not to get too attracted to Spanish people. Right, Spain out of possession, England in possession. This is going to be a little bit shorter because realistically Spain is going to have most of the ball. I think we all know that. But England, if they have enough of the ball, enough of the time, they have a chance, because there are 4 England midfielders against 3 Spain midfielders. So Rice, Mainu, Foden, and Bellingham against Olmo, Fabian, and Rodri, unless Carvajal comes in here. And I actually think that's not the worst idea at all, because Trippier's positioning over the last 2 games has been comedic. He's been playing like an inside forward. It's bizarre. Actually, okay, you let the ball get to Trippier, but Trippier can do something I'll talk about a little bit later where can be a problem. But you can at least have him get on the ball and move the ball to his right foot, and then you can press him and force him into a pass back to Rice, or even force him to try to play the ball back to Gueye or something. force him into a mistake. You know what I mean? But getting the ball out to Trippier is not the worst thing you. However, what can happen is what Trippier can do on the ball if you allow him enough space, far enough forward. He's not a bad crosser of the ball at all. Crosses to the back post are a problem for Spain because Marc Cucurella is 5'7". No disrespect to our short kings. I'm shorter than Cook, but it's a problem. Now, Kane has to make the runs into the area because there is not even any need for him to in possession, as we covered before, the fact that there are 3 Spain midfielders. So Kane doesn't have to support any possession, really. Because if he drops it, okay, let's say he has the ball. First of all, why? Second of all, like Foden and Bellingham are already there and are elite passers of the ball in their own right. Like, why would Kane feel the need to pick the ball up and try to spray, balls across the Saka and Trippier? As good at this as he is, it's not needed in my opinion. What he needs to do is make sure he's making runs into the back post. Because if it's Kane against Cucurella it's a problem. Now, how can England achieve this? First of all, as we said, move the ball around long enough. However slow it is, just try to keep possession for as long as possible. Suddenly, you will find yourself progressing forward with just simple, small passes that might take 5 seconds each. But naturally, if you have the ball long enough, you'll progress far enough if you really want to. But also, I think Jude Bellingham can really do with dropping in here. Carvajal can only tuck in so much. If he tucks in at all, if he tries to even mark Bellingham whatsoever, he might elect to stay out wide. But if Bellingham is dropping in here as the free man in a 4v3 situation in midfield, then you can have him as the extra man from defensive midfield to attacking midfield, so to speak. So if the ball is with Rice, Fabian's closing him down. Bellingham drops into here. Roderick can only drop in so much because he knows Foden might come in behind. Okay, what if Nacho drops in? Then you have Trippier maybe making a move here. We spoke about how little danger Trippier, has in possession. But, you can only commit so many men to moving out of position, really. So if Bellingham drops in, there will be those passing possibilities. He can turn and drive with the ball forward. Then you have, why was Kane so far out there? Anyway, then he can move the ball out to Saka. You can start those, build-up phases. If he moves the ball onto Trippier, and then you start having people arriving into the area, Kane arriving at the back post, Saka trying to, drift in field, actually, and baiting Laporta into marking him, or Foden being the one that, plays that left inside forward role and trying to get Laporta to mark him so that Kane can have, or Cucurella can have Kane, whichever way you want to look at it. End up in a situation where Cucurella is marking Kane at the back stick. If Trippier can send these crosses in, then, there's a massive advantage there. He can knock it down, Bellingham might arrive, Foden might arrive, Saka might arrive, and, Foden can attack or Bellingham can attack. Possibilities are there. Watch the Florian Wirtz goal late on in the game, the Germany game against Spain in the quarterfinal. So, yeah, we'll see, really. I just think it's more 50-50 than I first thought when both of those teams played the semifinal. There are pretty endless possibilities here. What I do know is going to be a good final. I don't think England will be as cautious mentality-wise as they have been, because they know it's a final. They've been in this situation before. They've lost once 3 years ago. Just individually, these players have been there before, which that experience is crucial as well. An experience that this Spain squad hasn't had. And I think that can play to England's advantage. Spain have probably overall the better system, in my opinion, that have better credentials going into the final when it comes to this tournament. But it's in the balance, to be honest. And each team have weaknesses that the other can exploit. But I think England's weaknesses are probably more in number. But hey, here we go. We'll see what happens on Sunday. What do we know anyway?